All right, hello. My name is Jonathan Masariegos, and my teammates are Diane Gomez, Viridiana Gonzalez, and we'll be going over this week's environmental policy news. Um, First off, we're going to look into specifically cap and trade, the bridge between existing systems and the ideal, because as we know, oil is a big contributor to local economies across California. In this example, we have Benicia in California. They were um, impacted because of Valero was polluting more than they should. So there was fines against this company, and this occurred in 2023, and now it's 2025. So they're going to be leaving or shutting down their operations in Benicia, California in 2026, so next year. And this is significant because local residents are stating that yes, there's like health issues with excess emissions, but there's also an economic consequence to them shutting down their operations. So there's like a split between the locals. Cap and trade seeks to be the solution to situations like these, providing a balance between industry and the environments through its credit system, with its ultimate goal shifting California's economy slowly and seamlessly into greener energy efforts. So, how does cap and trade actually work? Cap and trade aims to balance industry with the environment. In this image, we have an example of initial emissions versus emissions cap. So we have three examples: source A, B, and C. Source B meets the requirements perfectly. Source A goes beyond and goes below. The emission cap level. And source C has trouble reaching this emission cap level. What can occur through cap and trade is source A selling these emission credits because it exceeded or expectations, right? So it's like below the emission cap. So it has uh, emission credits to trade with source C. And this deal goes on for like millions of dollars in auction. And that just ultimately means more money for the renewable industry in California. And the ultimate, to summarize, it would be like making the reduction of emissions feasible for companies by providing them paths or multiple paths to compliance. So, an example of how this can impact urban and regional planning as a whole, we have the Senate Bill 79, which is just passed this year, and it's a transit-oriented development bill. This is going to be funded by the cap and trade system because cap and trade is already investing in affordable housing and sustainable communities near public transit, which, as we know, reduces VMT and decreases reliance on private vehicles. So, as an example, we also have a statistic here that states over $3.5 billion of transit and rail programs, over 1,300 projects statewide, expected to reduce 30 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So, this was like a stat back in 2024. So, it's only going to get better from here. And it really does follow the polluters pay model. And on the chart, we have like roles of the cap and trade program. So, they're like the ones responsible for raising the money. And then we have the GGRF, which is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And they're like the bank or the treasurer of the money. And the CCI is the one spending the money in projects that do need the funding and support green infrastructure. So it's ultimately making the money work against climate change. Um, California Department of Fish and Wildlife knows this, and they also know that wetlands do a very good job of carbon sequestration, so removing carbon from the air. And wetlands can sequester or capture carbon from the air for like decades. So a lot of the money is being used, like billions of dollars is being used to restore and enhance wetlands across California. And this money would not be possible without cap and trade. So programs like the Wetlands Restoration of Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program can exist.
So another example of cap and trade in action is the Hoopa Valley Tribal Forestry Department. So this is funded through California Climate Investments. They received a grant amount of $1.36 million from Cal Fire's Forest Health Program. So the Hoopa Valley Tribe is looking at restoring 700 plus acres oak oak woodland using prescribed fire and selective thinning. In the past, cultural burning was banned for decades, which allowed Douglas fir to overrun the oak ecosystem. So this project aims to reintroduce beneficial fire to revive oak habitats and reduce wildfire risks. So this is a great example of how it kind of been learning in this class. So it introduces environmental as well as looking at disadvantaged communities. So this is just a short video of them discussing how cultural burning helps the people as well as the ecosystem. And if you can click on it, skip to like 40 seconds.
The slope at the right time of the year, because what they consider cultural burning has taken place for many years, and there's no threat of that fire consuming all the vegetation, killing all the trees, high mortalities. So for us, the importance of cultural is to protect what we have here. Like I said, the trees feed us, the trees feed the animals feed us. And so that's our culture. We burn for a cultural product. Our baby baskets mean a lot to our people. That's the lifeline of our young children when they go inside of that. Some of this area out here actually has that product in it. So for us, if we're not burning, that we're really not existing. We're not doing what we're put here on this earth for. Our job is to take care of the forest. So this year we've had 2 fires just in our local area, the Hill Fire, and when one of those days it exceeded a couple thousand, 2,000-3,000 acres. And then the Boise Fire, which just recently within the last 2 weeks exceeded 5,000 acres in one day. Well, historically, we haven't had fires that did that. And the reason why those fires were there is because our ancestors, the cultural side of it, would burn. They would burn these ridges off. They would know exactly what time of the year to light a fire up. And so when they were coming down from the high country, before the rains would come in, they would know when to set those fires. They were setting it to take care of the understory, to reduce these fuels. All the river tribes did that type of stuff. So that's why our fires in these areas, I believe, are smaller, is because we have that footprint here. We allow.
Thank you. And anyone's interested at looking at the rest of the video, it's very interesting and it goes more in depth. So a few of the benefits that come from this project, 11,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent are reduced by preventing severe wildfires. There's improvements in carbon storage, biodiversity, native plant growth for cultural use. It also provides tribal forestry jobs and integrates traditional ecological knowledge. And it also advances state climate and equity goals by focusing on tribal and disadvantaged communities.
So in terms of community and public impacts, Cap and Invest focuses its revenue largely on helping communities most affected by pollution and climate change. So at least 35% of funds must go to projects that benefit disadvantaged communities, and these include things like for cleaner transportation, affordable housing, and programs that reduce exposure to air pollution. An example of that would be the Inland Empire, how they have received millions in funding for clean transit. And then that's from one of the articles that we listed in the end. So for connections to existing policies, this aligns with various policies that are already existing in California's broader climate framework. I've included a timeline of when some were created and towards like now where we're at with Cap and Invest. So some examples are it supports the 2006 Global Warming Solutions Act, or AB 32, which legally requires emissions to return to the 1990 levels. It also complements with SB 32, which sets a 2030 target of reducing emissions by 40%. And lastly, it connects with the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, leveraging federal incentives for clean energy. So Cap and Invest is one of the primary tools helping California reach its 2045 carbon neutrality target.
This
Thank
is
you.
our reference page, and thank you guys very much for listening.